Hey, JK here. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome back to 30 Teams in 30 Days. We have taken a few days off, but I'm in my best Christmas attire so that I can bring you Christmas presents tonight. 3 videos. I'm going to record them all, edit them all, and get them out. It's probably going to be kind of late, but the goal is to get them out and to stay on track. The World Baseball Classic also took over the last few nights, so definitely watching that, and ultimately disappointed that USA just did not show any type of emotion, any type of or any type of brains when it took to putting together the lineup for that final game. In any case, we're going to get to day 21 and talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. In 2025, they finished 71-91, which was down from the previous years and also on the low end of the last 10 years. So something's going on in Pittsburgh and it's not great. Probably terrible manager. In any case, they did keep their record of finishing 4th and or 5th in their division alive since 2017. That's not exactly what you want to do. However, the most concerning part of this Pittsburgh Pirates offense, or lack thereof, was that they only scored 583 runs. You might be thinking, that sounds like a lot. Is that? No, it is not. So this is actually the fewest runs they've scored since 1994. But that was the strike shortened year, so we're not going to count that. Going back actually to 1985 when they only scored 568 runs. So this offense was lethargic. And there were a few reasons for that. First of all, their do-it-all guy, Brian Reynolds, fell in all of his stats. Most notably, some all the way back to his rookie year in 2019. That would have been his strikeouts. Those were the highest of his career. He also dropped in runs, home runs, stolen bases, and of course, average. Because if you're not hitting the ball, you're not going to have a high average. Another guy that actually set a record was O'Neal Cruz. Now this guy is fantastic. He actually set the record for the. And then O'Neal Cruz. Then, on a positive note, O'Neal Cruz actually did break a record. He was the only guy to ever hit 2. On a positive note, though. O'Neal Cruz did set a record. On a positive note, though, O'Neal Cruz did set a record. He actually smashed that record. He had 30 home runs. On a positive note, O'Neal Cruz broke a record. Actually, he smashed a record. So he had 20 home runs, 30 RBIs, 20-plus home runs. On a positive note, O'Neal Cruz broke a record. Actually, no, he smashed a record. He had at least 20 home runs, at least 30 RBIs, and was batting no higher than 230. But how's that smashing record? Because he did it batting 200. He didn't even need those other 30 batting points. Yeah, he also led the team with 11 errors. But that was actually better than his previous year when he had like 24 errors or 26 or something like that. So that's actually a positive. And then the third reason that their team was so bad was that Andrew McCutchen was their third best player stat-wise. And it's not because Andrew McCutchen was bad. He did actually improve his stats for 24 or 25, but not third best on a Major League Baseball team good. He was still pretty mediocre at absolute best. There are a few team stats that I want to read off and hopefully reiterate just how lethargic, how pathetic, how lowly this offense was. Only 3 players had at least 502 at-bats, and then there was a pretty significant drop-off. That means a lot of people were coming in and out of the lineup, literally, but also defensive lineups. Because if you're not comfortable in the field, you're going to have more focus on that, trying not to mess up. Remember defensive shifts, even though the shift really isn't a thing. You just go a little more to left field or right field, a little closer to second or third, so on and so forth. In any case, there were also only 5 guys who had 10 or more home runs, and most home runs was 20. O'Neal Cruz. There were only 3 guys with 100 or more hits, and only 2 guys that scored more than 60 runs. There's only 1 guy that had 70 or more RBIs. Also, only 1 guy that had more than 200 total bases, and there were 2 guys that had more than 173 strikeouts. They were their 2 best hitters. There were 14 guys who had at least 150 at-bats, and unfortunately, 2 of those guys had under 200 batting average. Jack Suwinski actually had a 147 batting average. Wow. Of the remaining 12, only 4 had more than 250 at-bats, with 1 having more than 400 at-bats. Just barely. So it sounds like we are absolutely crapping on the Pirates already. They're already bottom of the barrel when it comes to their division. How in the world could it get any worse? But wait, there's some positive. Spencer Horwitz, after spending 2 years with the Toronto Blue Jays and could not find enough playing time because there was a Vladimir Guerrero-sized problem at first base, he was able to come on over and play for the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I do not know if that is a positive or a negative at this point in time. However, with more playing time, he did see more stats, but he did have his home runs fall. You might be thinking, why is that a particular point of interest to you? Well, right field is shorter at PNC than it is in the Rogers Center. But despite having lower walls, Power Alley is actually 20 feet shorter at Rogers Center than in PNC. So that probably did cut off a few more home runs. It wasn't a huge drop, only like 1 or 2, but that is the difference between a home run and a can of corn. And the next guy we're talking about is Nick Gonzalez. It pains me to even think about saying this and like explaining this situation, but I can just imagine how it feels for Pirates fans. In any case, his magical moment in 2025 came on opening day when he had a 2-run shot to extend the Buccos lead over the Marlins 4-1. Absolutely a no doubt shot. Starts around the bases and then starts hobbling. Ooh, obviously makes it around, is removed from the game, and later reveals that he has a non-displaced fracture on the same foot or ankle that he fouled a ball off earlier in spring training. Oh my gosh. This sounds like a Royce Lewis type of situation. Hits a home run and gets hurt running the bases. Really? Like, that is such a Pirates thing to do. In any case, he did miss some time, did come back, played in 96 total games, which was actually more than 2024. He saw similar stats. He did see less RBIs, but maybe that was because he was leading off or because the Pirates were just terrible at manufacturing any runs. I'm going to take the latter. Moving from short to third, Brian Hayes absolutely set the world on fire when the world literally felt like it was on fire in C20. He only had 24 games at the major league level, but had a 376 batting average. We were all excited. We, as fantasy managers, and everyone else as Pirates fans, y'all were probably clamoring, like, oh my God, I love him. Well, the last 5 years were underwhelming to say the least. He had a decent 2023, but it was still mediocre at best. Now, he's taking his talents to Cincinnati, and he's going to have to worry about Eugenio Suarez, who had the game-winning hit for Venezuela to beat USA in the World Baseball Classic. But whatever. He is going to have to stave him off to play third. Now, Suarez has already been noted to be playing first and or DHing, so it's not like he's going to have to fight really, really hard for it. That's enough talk about the Reds. Let's stick to the Pirates and move to the pitching. 2 words. Paul Skeens. He was the man, not only in Pittsburgh, but Major League Baseball and the World Baseball Classic. He did pretty good. So as much as I don't want to talk about good player stats, we definitely need to talk about this guy. Not only did Paul Skeens dazzle the World Baseball Classic, but he did so all year for the Pirates. If the Pirates do the same thing to Skeens as the Angels do to Trout or have done to Trout, I am going to be so upset. Even more so than I already am with such good players being on bad teams. In any case, 32 starts, 20 quality starts, only 10 wins. But those wins, he earned every single one because he got no run support. 1.97 ERA with a .95 whip, and you don't win every single game? What? He also had 216 strikeouts in 187 innings. Bro. Pirates, do something for him. Now, there was a very distant second, okay? That was Mitch Keller. He had 17 quality starts. He also had a 4.19 ERA and a 1.28, doesn't matter, 1 point higher than Mr. Skeens. Whatever that was, it don't matter because it wasn't close to Skeens. Mitch Keller also led the team in losses, so very distant second. There's another very young pitcher for the Pirates who did very well, Bubba Chandler. He started 4 games, appeared in, I believe, 6 or 8. This is where numbers can be deceiving, okay? Because when you look at the wins, he went 3-1. Whoa, dude, 4 starts, 3 wins? Hold on. Without that piece of information, the .93 whip would also lead you to think, this man is unhittable. He is phenomenal. He is the next coming of Paul Skeens. Well, his ERA was 4+. That's right. How is it so bad? Hold on. Another numbers can be deceiving. Of the 14 earned runs in those 8 appearances that he had in 2025, 9 of them came against the Milwaukee Brewers in 1 game. over 2 2/3 of an inning. Now, I did not figure out what the whip would be, but we know it would be even lower. His ERA would be 1.51. You talk about shooting up fantasy rosters and ADP. It would be wild. As we move to the bullpen, there are really only two names to talk about, David Bednar and Mr. Dennis Santana. Bednar did lead the team in saves with 17. Even after he was traded mid-season, no one still overtook 17 saves. Dennis Santana did have 16. He also had 13 holds. He was a setup man for Mr. Bednar and actually had better numbers. Like, I don't even think it was really that bad for the Pirates to lose Bednar. They just needed setup men, and the rest of the setup men for the Pirates, you might as well have just had Dennis Santana get the hold and the save. That's not even possible, but that would have been easier on him. As we move to the prospects, there's really only one we're going to talk about. That is Mr. Connor Griffin. Now, he is doing everything he can to make the manager question whether to keep him up. He came on strong. He has got 4 home runs already. He's doing some stuff at the plate, 9 RBIs, so maybe leading off, so he doesn't have the most people to get around, but he's only hitting 209, maybe even lower after today, and has 10 strikeouts to 0 walks. So he's doing everything to go back down to the minors because he obviously does need some time. But it might be smarter for the Pirates to keep him up there, learn behind Nick Gonzalez. If he needs to play second, if he needs to play third, he can. Maybe there is a spot for him at second. Maybe there's a spot for him at third if he can perform well enough. As we move to the rivals and departures, we're going to figure out if there's a spot at second and or third for Mr. Griffin, or if that has a roadblock in it as well. The arrivals do include Mr. Brandon Lowe, who is going to occupy second after having a 31 home run season for the Rays. He's coming on over to PNC, and he's going to hope to bring that power and hopefully a higher batting average. But if it's just home runs and a low batting average, we want put Connor Griffin in, right? Also brought over Marcell Ozuna, who does have hip issues, but still scary enough to draw walks at a very high clip. Those are brought over outfielders Ryan O'Hearn, who had a pretty good season when he was with the Orioles, Jack Mangum, who could hit 300 plus with the Rays, and Joxton Alphabet Garcia. They call him like the alphabet or something. He's got an X in his name and a Y, and people think that's cool. But in any case, they also brought on some pitchers to hopefully fortify that rotation and our bullpen. Gregory Soto, Mike Clevenger, Jose Urquidy, Equity, whatever your name is. He pitched for the Astros. He wasn't sexy. Now we get to the people who left. Some of the bigger names are Brian Hayes, Johan Oviedo, who I really like, David Bednar, of course, and some other names that weren't exactly the biggest, but still produced and still contributed in some sort of way. Andrew Haney, Bailey Falter, Tommy Pham, and Isaiah Kiner Falafel. I know it's not that, but that's what we're going to call him, Falafel. As we move to the fantasy assets, I think it's important to know that the expectations with these fantasy assets are absolutely going to have to be understood. Like, keep them low. Definitely Brian Reynolds, definitely O'Neal Cruz, definitely Marcell Ozuna, but again, that's going to be with a grain of salt. I also think Nick Gonzalez and also Brandon Lowe are going to be valuable assets if they can stay healthy and have a decent batting average. Also, they released O'Hearn, who can play first and outfield, and also Spencer Horwitz was a little bit of power. And then, of course, as we get to the Dynasty Leagues, you definitely want to look at Connor Griffin or just your league if he's not taken already. As we get to the pitching, Paul Skeens, you are waiting like there are more pitchers we need to talk about. Maybe Bubba Chandler, more, Mitch Keller, more, Dennis Santana, but do not have him as your sole closer, okay? Now we move on to the bowl predictions. I think they're going to be a quartet of absolute piratey bucko men with 20-plus home runs. Brandon Lowe, Marcell Ozuna, O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds gets back into the 20 home run pack. I think it's going to be huge for them because they have to get some production, way more production than they had last year. I also think the Paul Skeens is going to win 15 games, have another 50 to 75% quality start rate, have the 200-plus innings and 200-plus strikeouts, and still probably wind up on a losing team. In any case, this is going to do it for day 21 today. We're also now going to move on to day 22 and talk about the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm going to be back in just a second with another video. This is JK, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.